Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We greatly appreciate it. We have Emily Hackett on the show with us. She's a WBFF Pro, WBFF Fitness Diva Pro, and she's also a Pure Elite Pro. But most importantly, she's our current guest on the show. Emily, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And if for those of you who haven't realized from her quick little bit of speaking, she is not from the United States. She is coming to us all the way from over in the UK. She's our third UK guest, and we couldn't appreciate it even more. But Emily, why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what got you started into the adapting the healthy and fit lifestyle?
Well, back in the day, I say that like I'm like really old. I'm only 26. I used to be a dancer, so you think I would have to have been fit and healthy to have done that, but believe it or not, I was actually like really unmotivated. I had no energy. My diet was poor. I hated like any kind of fitness element. So when we got involved in like boot camp training sessions to obviously help our stamina, I would always just like pretend I was injured, and I just hate any kind of fitness. So when I used to dance, obviously it really affected me, like my poor diet and stuff. It affected my stamina, my performance. And I actually lived with a girl on a contract that I was doing who was a qualified PT. So she's like, oh, let's do exercise videos off YouTube in the living room just to like, give us something to do in a day. And I was like, oh, okay, this is fun. And I actually kind of like enjoyed it. And then we ended up going to the gym together. And I was just one of these girls that did so much cardio. Like I would just run on the treadmill for like 40 minutes at a time. I thought that's all it was about, really. I didn't know anything about weights, like lifting weights or anything. And then it just kind of like I started to see results. I started to see like, I was losing weight. And then from there, it just got a bit addictive, really. And then I decided to kind of give up dance because I just lost the passion for it. I didn't like being away from home like 6 months at a time. This is a few years ago when I was with my ex-partner, that I decided to take up like exercise to music, is what they call it over here, like teaching fitness classes as a plan B. And then from there, it just kind of grew and grew. And then that's when I decided to take my PT qualification. I kind of lost the passion for teaching classes as well, and just liked being one-on-one with people. So that's kind of how I got into the fitness.
Yeah. So when you were getting started, did you find that your body adjusted really, really quickly, or were you one of those people where it took a little while because you did have that dancing background? Do you think that that benefited you when it came to, adapting really, really quickly?
I say that I was always quite a curvy girl, especially when I went to university. Like my diet, as I said, was really poor, so I just ate a lot. I wasn't really genetically gifted, if that's kind of what you're talking about. I would say like my body type is more like an endomorph, which means I kind of store fat quite quickly, especially in my lower limbs. So yeah, I wasn't genetically gifted. So I really had to work for my body, but I did go through a phase where I was like really, really skinny. So I went from like curvy to really skinny with like no curves at all, no balm. Which just kind of gets me onto another subject.
Did you find, because I always like to kind of use this analogy, if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people and you were to walk up to each person and sort of ask what they did, you'll get 100 different answers. Like either when it comes to how many reps you do, what exercises you do, how you do those exercises, how your nutrition works. Was it hard for you starting out to find out what works best specifically for you? Because everyone is so different. Everyone has their own way of sort of adapting and, getting to those results.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. So for me, like one of the things that happened to me was I was just getting told so many different things, as you said. Like everyone has different ways of doing these things. When I first decided to enter a bodybuilding competition, I really wanted to do it on my own. I didn't want to have a coach. I was like, well, I'm just going to do this on my own. But I was talking to people who was already in the fitness industry and just saying, well, like, can you give me some tips on how to get started? And I had one person telling me one thing, and then the other person telling me another thing, and it was just getting too much. Like, I'm a perfectionist, so I wanted to go in and do it properly rather than go in and do it wrong or do it half-heartedly. So in the end, for me, I was like, well, do you know what? I think it's just gonna be so much easier if I just reach out and find myself a coach. So, and then that way I can put all my trust into one person, just listen to them, have a massive weight lifted off my shoulders. And that's what I did. And I've been with the same coach for the last 3 years, and I've got amazing results. And yeah, and it's just the best choice I ever did, really.
And when it came to the nutrition aspect, were you always having sort of a healthy eating habits before you got started lifting weights, or did that sort of really jumpstart when you started adapting that lifestyle?
Yeah, so as I said, when I started to get into the fitness, I did change my diet, but I didn't do it properly. Like, as I said, I did lots of cardio. I cut out carbs. I was just one of these girls that thought, carbs were the enemy. So I was living off like chicken and broccoli. I wasn't really replacing carbs with anything else. So if you take up carbs that you diet, you need to replace it with fat. You can't exclude a food group. It's just not healthy. So yeah, so in the end, like, I just had to adapt my eating. So when I got the coach, she was like, right, this is your meal plan. Here you go. You're going to eat 6 times a day. You're going to have all these carbs. And I was like, oh my God, like, I've just been eating like 3 meals a day. Like, never had this much rice before. I remember like weighing out my food and thinking, oh my God, this is so much food, and taking pictures like, is this right? She's like, yeah, that's right. And I'm like, okay, like, just kind of freaking out as I'm eating it. But then obviously the more you do it, as I said, you've got to put the trust into someone. And then the more you do it, the more results you see. And that's when you realize, obviously, yeah, this is right. You have to trust the process. And that's what most people don't do. Like, they kind of freak out, panic, and then just go back to square one. But I've been doing this a long time now, that I know that it's all part of the process. You need carbs to fill your muscles out. You need carbs to, look toned. So,
were there any tricks that you use to sort of convince your body? Like you said, you're going to need to eat a lot more if you're putting on muscle, or if you're gaining size than you normally had eaten before. Were there any tricks that you used in order to trick your body or to trick your mind into eating more? Or was it one of those things where you're like, finally, I get to eat a lot more now?
for me, it's just being consistent. Like, as I said, I went from eating 3 meals to 6 meals, but I kept at the start, I kept missing meals because as you said, I just wasn't hungry for it. And I'm quite a sweet tooth person as well. So eating like 6 savory meals a day was just like, like, where's the sweet stuff at? Like, other than the oats, it was like, okay, I need the sweet stuff. So I did really struggle with that. And yes, I did skip meals. But then over time, it's like anything, like, your body will adjust to it. Like, the more you get used to it, like, your digestive system does like pick up, catch up really quickly. So halfway through the prep, I was eating all my meals. I was hungry because my body got used to eating that regularly.
Yeah. So when did you decide that you wanted to compete? Was that early on, or was it, I mean, a lot of people that we have on say that it was people walking up to him and saying like, hey, you should really compete. You look great. What was your story or personal story like when it came to deciding to compete?
It's actually pretty similar to me. I had a guy come up to me in a gym and was like, wow, your physique's amazing. Like, have you ever thought of competing before? And I was like, no, like, I love food. I love alcohol. I love having a life. Thank you. I was like, definitely not. And then I started my job as a personal trainer, and I sat down with the coach at the time, who was like training me. And he said, look, what's your goal? And I said, I don't really have a goal. And he said, oh, okay, well, like, if you had to think of something, what would you do? And I said, oh, well, people keep saying to me, like, you should compete. Like, maybe I'll just do that. Like, because to be fair, I've never really done anything just for me. My whole life, it's always been like team stuff. I never did it solo. Even when I danced, it was like, I was never one of these girls that like, did all these things for themselves. So for me, it was like, let's set myself a challenge and really push myself out of my comfort zone. I felt like it was time to just do something for me and focus on myself. And that was part of the reason why I did it.
Yeah. So when it came down to the competition part, what was your first prep like? I always love to hear those prep stories because, like you said, you were following sort of you were following a healthy and clean nutrition before, but what is it like when you really amped that up and really got down to the really strict eating? What was that like?
It is hard. Like, prep life is hard. And I think because now like quite a lot of people do it, I think they think it's like really easy. And then when they do it, they're like, they have a massive shock because it's not for everybody. Like, you have to have a strong mindset for it as well. So, if your mindset's not in the right place, then it's definitely not for you. So, if someone has like an eating disorder, for example, like, doing a competition is definitely not the right idea because, it does mess with your head mentally. And you have to be prepared for that. So, yeah, so for me, like, prep the first time I did it was really hard because it was very old school. My coach was quite old school at the time as well, so all her methods were very, strict and like bro diet, all this kind of stuff, lots of cardio. That I didn't like. I did get a really good result, but like I feel like I looked quite skinny when it comes to the show day and stuff like that. I burnt up a lot of muscle because of like these old school style training. This year when I competed, I did everything completely different, and it was the best prep I've ever had. It was really hard, but like I was able to cope with it a lot more because there wasn't so much cardio every single day. Like I went from doing 7 days a week of slow, steady state cardio at like an hour a day, maybe twice a day, to 4 20-minute hit sessions a week. Like, so it was like cut in half, but the result I got at the end of it was so much better. I looked stronger. I looked more, my muscles were more defined. I held on to a lot more muscle rather than burning it up. And the diet side of it as well, I did flexible dieting, so which is quite popular at the minute. So with the flexible dieting, I think when you say that to people, they think, oh, flexible dieting, you can eat whatever you want as long as it fits your macros. And it's not really like that. If you do it properly, it's like 80-20. So 80% of the time, your diet comes from lean meats, whole grains, and then the 20% can be for that extra room. So for me, like flexible diet, be having like a couple of caramel rice cakes with like chocolate nut butter or something. That's like my 20%. But again, for me, it helped me a lot more with my mindset this time. So I didn't feel so restricted. And also as well, I took a different approach. I did carb cycling as well for the first time. And with that, like it really helps with your cravings. So you don't feel like you have to cheat all the time. You don't feel like you're missing out because every couple of days you get to refeed. So my cheat meals actually got cut out at 8 weeks this time, but because I was doing the carb cycling up until about 3 weeks before my show, I didn't feel the need that I needed to have a cheat meal. So yeah, I've done lots of, I think every time you prep, it's always different and you're always learning new things, but that's what makes you better every time.
Mm-hmm. And I love to ask our guests, what was it like that first time you put that tanner on? Because like I always say, I'm a very pale person. I've never got to experience what it's like to, have that tan look. What was that like for you the first time you put that tan on? We have a lot of people describe like to see all those muscles pop out, to see people don't realize that they had muscles that they never even thought they had. What was that experience like for you the first time?
Do you know what? Like for me, I'm someone that's kind of tanned all year round. So I always get asked if I'm like half something, like all the time. People don't think I'm actually English, so that's quite a compliment. So for me, it wasn't really any different. Like I've always been quite dark, but yeah, it is really good. I think, for me, up until about 4 weeks before the show, we have to exfoliate every single day. I do go back to my normal color, so I do go really pale because the fake tan comes off, the English me comes out. So yeah, it is really nice to just get that tan on and just see the muscles pop in. I have had a couple of one show I think when my tan was too dark, which again can make you look quite flat on stage, I think. So tanning is so important when it comes to it as well. Like obviously you can't help who the show's federation tanning company is. If it comes out bad, it's not really your fault. But yeah, it is worth like 50% of your marks as well. So yeah.
yeah. It's one of those things that people don't like to talk about because it can really help, either give you that ranking, give you that victory, but it's all coming down to basically what you look like on that stage. But I also love to ask, because I have so many up and coming bands on the show, musicians, and I love to ask them what it's like performing live, but that also applies, I think, to the health and fitness people when they're doing their shows. What is that like for you when you're walking on the stage? People are usually cheering, they're usually, show you a ton of support, and you're able to show off, all that hard work that we talked about, like especially with prep, where it can be sort of like a living hell for a lot of people. But when you finally get done with that and you finally get to show it off, what is that feeling like for you when you step on stage?
I absolutely love it. And I think it's because I do come from a dancing background. And even though I lost my passion for dance, I didn't lose my passion for performing. I've always loved the performance element of it. I just hated the lead up to it. That was the whole reason why I gave up dancing. So this is why I kind of chose bodybuilding as well, because I still had that element of being on stage and the glamour side as well, of combined with fitness. And that's why I love it. So for me, I'm a very confident person. Get me up on stage, I have no problem with it at all. Whereas most people can like really, really shy away. They get so nervous that, that they just end up shaking. messing things up. Don't get me wrong, it is nerve wracking. If it doesn't excite you, it's not an opportunity. That's how I see it. Like, you've always got to get yourself psyched up for it. But yeah, for me, I absolutely love it. I love the bikinis. I love the makeup. I love just bringing my personality across the stage and just bringing that sass, because that's what I'm all about.
Absolutely. So when it comes down to those shows, how was it walking in the heels? Because most people don't like to talk about that. Was it a big adjustment for you walking in those heels, or do you always wear heels? What has that been like?
Yeah, as I said, like, because I've danced and I also like do performing. So I used to work a lot for nightclubs and like multi-skill performing and stuff. So I'm really used to wearing heels. Although I do live in trainers a good 90% of the time. As soon as I get heels on, it's fine. But again, I think it's like you've got to get the right type of heels. And I think some girls, if they can't walk in heels, they would pick out the biggest heels you can imagine. And I'm like, why? Like, that's the worst option. Like, at least go a little bit smaller and practice in that first. So yeah, that's my top tip there is, if you can't walk in heels, don't go for the highest heels out there. Like, it's not all about the height, it's about how you walk in them. So
One of the things I also like to bring up is that people don't realize when you guys are competing at these shows, they don't realize that you have sort of manipulated your body through all of the dieting, through all of the exercising, especially through the prep, to look a certain way, and that look is not sustainable. Like, people talk about how sometimes their look changes for them even overnight once they start eating after the show. They realize that they're not going to look that great. How do you deal with that mentally, though, knowing that, hey, this is the best that I'm going to look for a while, because unfortunately, like, I am going to put on weight, like, this look just isn't sustainable? How do you deal with that mentally, knowing that you will eventually put on weight?
as I said, like, it is really, really hard. And I think for me, I always think that every time it will get easier. Like, you think, oh, like, I've done it once, next time it will be fine. Like, but it doesn't. It gets harder because your physique gets better every time. So again, as you said, it's kind of like changing your mindset. Like, how do you get over that? Like, not looking so lean all the time. I am one who does really struggle with this. I love myself when I'm lean, but then I do love myself when I'm curvy. But it's just understanding the process. And as you said, it's not sustainable. It's not healthy to live like that as well. So I think for me, it's the health side that gets me round that situation rather than how I look. Because even though I look really lean, like, I think my face looks so tired. I think I look older. I can't get into the bath, like, my hip bones digging in. I remember like shaving my armpits and it was like shaving bone. Like, you feel the cold so much. Even people just hugging me, I just felt so fragile, like they were going to hurt me. If I wore a top like this, it would like kind of graze my collarbone and it would rub me. So things like that is kind of what makes me think I don't want to stay like this forever. And as well, like, my boyfriend really helps me out with this. He's very supportive and very motivating. So, as soon as I say to him, oh, like, I'm not as shredded anymore, he would say, look, it's good. Like, he really respects me for doing what I do and getting as lean as I do. But he loves me when I've got my curves and stuff like that. And I think that's what you have to remind yourself, is that we are women, and women are meant to be curvy, and we're meant to be a little bit softer. We're not meant to be chiseled all the time. So that, curves are sexy, and I think I've now learnt to like both sides of me. I like to get my bum back, and I just like to feel full of life again and not feel so tired all the time as well.
So you mentioned before your boyfriend, and I'm a huge hopeless romantic, so I love to ask these current questions, but how did you and your boyfriend meet?
So we met because he had a personal training studio that he used to run with his old business partner. So when I first passed my PT qualification, I went in there for a job, and he was the first person I saw. And he gave me like a little interview, and we had what we call a little barbecue chat. And it just kind of went from there, really. I think we started, obviously, I got the job. And then we started work. Obviously, I was with him every single day. You can't help a spark that builds. And it didn't help that he trained me. He was like, oh, let me start training you. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then you just kind of build up that spark. And we just kind of found out that we had the same ambition, we had the same passion. He really wanted to get out of the business at the time and do something more. He wanted to take, like, his business global and start doing things online, and so did I. So it just felt stupid not to act on it. And we always say, like, no matter how hard we tried for it not to happen, it would have always happened, because I'm a strong believer of fate, and I do believe that we was meant to meet. So yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
So where did you guys go on your first date?
Well, we didn't really have a first date. It was more like he kind of took me round to his for dinner. It was actually quite a funny story. I told him that I was allergic to avocado a few weeks before, and I turned up for dinner, and he'd made me like these like really nice homemade burgers with guacamole. And I said, "Oh, like I can't eat guacamole. Like I think I'm allergic to avocado. The last couple of times I've had it, like I just keep throwing up." He's like, "No, you'll be fine. It's only like just have a little bit." So I ended up having a little bit of this guacamole, and then 2 hours later I ended up throwing up in the toilet all night. So kind of ruined the date, but it also made me think, like, okay, well, I've definitely got a keeper here, because he hasn't kicked me out. So that's how you know. That's how you know they like you.
So you did mention that your boyfriend, he has a business. Would you like to tell the audience what that business is and where they can maybe get a hold of it, where they can see it?
So the business is our business that we run together. Which is the Body Transformation Academy. We're on social media. We're known as bta.fitness. And we started this back in 2016. So when we first met, as I said, like he wanted to get out of the business and I wanted to like do something. So we literally started this business up together after 2 months. Everything was really, really fast, but we've been going strong till this day. It's 2.5 years into it. We're building a massive community of people. We're just helping people all the time, which is good as well. So as I said, everything we do is, you know, coaching. We're setting up fitness retreats for next year. We've got coaching 7 people for a bodybuilding competition in November, that one that he's also doing himself. So we've got lots and lots of things going on.
That's unbelievable. And again, like I'll leave a link down below for all that stuff. Everyone go and check that stuff out. I mean, they definitely seem like they're going places, and I really, really just think that they'd be a really great influence to a lot of people. So everyone go check that out. But now we go to our audience favorite part of the podcast, the little questionnaire that we like to do towards the end, where I'll ask Emily here about a dozen or so questions, sort of a getting to know her, and then we'll sort of see how her answers stack up to everyone. I mean, I know we've had Canadians do this, we've had Americans do this, we've had Australians do this, and we've had now our first English person do this, this fitness questionnaire. So we'll see how she stacks up to everyone else that we've had on. So for our first question, no pressure at all. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Ooh, that is a good one. I go from rock playlist to drum and bass, believe it or not. So I'm liking a bit of Don Broco. I don't know if you've heard of them, an American rock band. They are a good training at playlist to listen to. But as an actual song, couldn't really put a finger on that because it does vary a lot. But
all right, yeah, no problem. I'm personally like an old school, like Metallica guy, where I got to go old school and just get the really heavy stuff just to influence me to start working out. But for our second question, if there was any celebrity on the planet that you could work out with, who would it be?
Lauren Simpson. She is my idol. I'm actually wearing one of her top right now.
Oh, wow. Plug out to her. We'll give a little shout out, see if she could watch this then. Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously we're plugging some of her merch. But now, if there was any celebrity on the planet that you could train, who would it be?
Ooh. Who I could train? Oh, this is a tough one. I don't actually know. I'm not really one of these celeb girls. I don't really follow celebs and stuff. I kind of just live in the real world. But who would I train? I don't know. Can I just say, I feel like fitness people are more of a celeb to me than actual real celebs.
Oh, yeah, those are celebrities too. Yeah, so you can mention one of those for sure.
Yeah, who I could train? Really on the spot. I don't know. Can I come back to that one?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we'll move on to our fourth question. What is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Almond milk. Can't live without it.
Does almond milk, I've always wondered, because we've had plenty of guests that have answered almond milk, does it have a different taste than regular milk, or do they make it so that it tastes similar?
Do you know what? I couldn't really tell you because I've never just had almond milk on its own, because I always mix it with my protein powder. So once the protein powder's in there, it just tastes like chocolate milk or vanilla milk. So I wouldn't have it on its own. It's not really that great. But as I said, I only use it in my oats. So
what's your favorite flavor of protein powder?
Oh, s'mores.
Ooh,
so I'm
that
sponsored
sounds
by
good.
BPI Sports, and they do the small s'mores. I think it's how you pronounce it. Flavor, which is like chocolate biscuit, and it's immense.
Yeah,
Really.
that sounds unbelievable. I'll definitely have to go and check that out. But what is one thing that people who follow you on Instagram would be surprised to find out if they met you in person?
Oh, these are tricky questions. I'm a bit of a geek, quite nerdy, I suppose. I love I do everything. I do all our social media. I do all our editing our videos, all that kind of stuff. So sit me in front of a laptop editing. That I'm really happy about that. So I think people might be surprised to see that side of me, like my kind of geeky side.
Yeah.
I love all this kind of geeky laptop stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what is one thing that you find funny that most people don't?
Oh, what do I find funny? Um, oh my god, you put me on the spot now. Can you give me some other people's answers?
Oh yeah. So like one person said like people falling over was one thing that she found really really funny that most people didn't. Another one was like those cat videos on YouTube where like these cats like just like get super scared and run away, just stuff like that. Or one of them was like dark humor, things like that.
Oh, do you know, I love like that kind of. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but like Summer Heights High, like Chris Lilly used to be obsessed with him back in the days, an Australian comedian.
Oh
But
yeah.
I love that kind of humor of like men dressing up as like women or like pretending to be someone that they're not. Like, whereas my boyfriend would be like, this is really crap, and I'm like, it's so funny.
Yeah, yeah. So now going on to our next question, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
I'm quite plain Jane. I like vanilla. I'm very like vanilla and everything. I'm not really fond of ice cream so much. It makes my teeth too cold.
Oh yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. No, I'm a cookie dough fanatic right there. If you get me a cookie dough blizzard, especially from one of our local chains that we have called Dairy Queen, that to me is just absolute heaven. But
Ben and Jerry's cookie dough.
Ben and Jerry's is very good as well. Yes, we have Ben and Jerry's over here as well. What is the big stereotype that people from the UK have on Americans?
You know, I love Americans. Like
Mhm.
one of me and my boyfriend's goals is to hopefully eventually move to America. But again, I think it's just like anything. Like people don't know, they just assume from the rumors that they hear and stuff. I couldn't actually pinpoint out one thing, but um,
A lot
I
of
think
it's like
that's
the obesity thing, is a lot of people like to say too, that all Americans are just like super super fat and stuff like that.
and quite like cheesy as well. I hear people say like very over the top and stuff,
Yeah.
but I'm all over that. I like a bit
I was
cheesy.
gonna say that is probably the one true stereotype, is that it's over the top and everything. Because being here my whole life, absolutely, I can say that for some people, yes, that is absolutely 100% the truth. So now this is our probably our toughest question that we ask. But what is one thing that you would die to have if it went up for auction out of all the items on the planet?
One thing I would die to have.
Mhm.
My straighteners. I need my hair straighteners. I have the most frizziest hair. Like that's probably one thing that the followers do not know about me is that I have really frizzy curly hair.
Yeah, I mean, one of the people that I had on there what said that she would want an entire diamond bikini to wear at her next competition, so that the judges wouldn't be able to take their eyes off her. And I said, well, yeah, but then here's the thing: you'd blind everyone in the audience, and there would be no way that they would like that. It'd be like you would not like what would happen from that. So yeah, everyone, make sure to be, when you're guessing something like that, make sure that you know the side effects. But now, what is your favorite fashion trend of all time and least favorite fashion trend of all time?
Favorite fashion trend. I don't really kind of follow fashion. I just kind of wear what I like. For me at the minute, I just live with fitness gear, so Ride Aware has to be one of my favorite fitness people to go to. Least fashion trend. I just hate all these flares, really, all these flares things that are going on, all the big, the 60s kind of flare trials and these big, thick feeler trainers that are going around right now. Just think it's quite ugly, to be fair.
Oh yeah.
But I like tight fitting clothes because I work hard for my body.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and for me personally, I like flannel stuff because that's just around. I mean, I live in a very cold climate sometimes, so we have to wear like the flannel stuff. But yeah, Uggs for me, it's like, come on, people, Show some respect. Show some
Uh,
respect for yourself. Show that you at least work a little bit hard for your appearance, other than wearing Uggs, because I see that happen.
the Uggs are real. It's not too bad. It's just when they're not and they cave in at the side, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh.
Well, and then sometimes people wear the Uggs where they don't wear socks, or sometimes they just go like the plain Uggs when they're like in just walking in the middle of the street, and it's like, come on,
Yeah.
people. That's a whole topic that I can get into. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. But now, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Historical. I'm not really into my history, hence why I kind of do this stuff. I actually kind of fed asleep in every history lesson in school because I just wasn't interested in it. So I'll probably say Xena. She's not even real, but
Yeah.
Xena's a princess. There you go.
Since it's a British edition, I'll give my British answer. Then I'd probably have to choose like a Winston Churchill or something like that to probably have. I'm a huge historian. I was a history major in college, so that's just my whole thing. But now our last history question that I'll ever ask you is: if you could live in any time period other than the current time period, where would you go?
I would say go back to a simple time. So I would say like the 60s would be pretty cool. Like, just the kind of the chilled vibes and all that kind of stuff as well. I would like that. Or maybe the 30s, like back in the Charleston days with all the flapper girls and all that kind of stuff, and the I can't remember what they're called now. What are they called? The rooms where they all sit in and do the dancing and they all
Oh, they do the
drink.
Charleston, the speakeasies?
Yeah, speakeasy,
Yeah.
that's it, yeah. I actually did a show like that at uni, like a whole speakeasy thing, and I was like a flapper girl. And I was like, I'd love to be in this time. Like, yeah, that's a bit of me, definitely.
See, now, I love to answer this. Me would personally be the 80s because, like you mentioned, the 60s and 70s. So if I were to go back historically, and if I were to go back to the 60s, I would probably, especially in America with Vietnam happening, I would probably have gotten drafted in the military and have to go to Vietnam. So that's a no for me. And then in the 30s, if I were to go back, we would just have to wait probably about 5 or 6 more years for World War II to break out, where I would then have to go and fight that. So for me, yeah, that's the no-go. So for me, the 80s, because the technology was good enough as it was right now, where there's still technological prowess where like I could at least enjoy a lot of the modern stuff, and the music was really great too. So that would be definitely the time period that I would go back to.
Thinking of it, I love the 90s. I love growing up as a child in the 90s.
Yep.
Like, there was none of this technology and stuff. The world was such, so simple, and you could just go out and have fun and play with your friends.
And you could actually talk to people too. Like, you could actually have like actual conversations with people.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I definitely would agree with you there.
Yeah. So what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
Friends. Do you know what? I've watched Friends over and over again, probably a good 10 times. I can re-incite word for word. But me and my boyfriend were on holiday in Mexico, and it was tropical storm for 5 days.
Oh.
So we was like, we're not really massive drinkers because we're into our fitness. We don't want to sit around at the bar drinking all day. So it was like, do you know what? We're so busy when we're at home, like literally non-stop, that we never have the time to watch TV. Let's just watch a series. So we just like binged Friends for a good 5 days, and we just kind of carried it on when we got home as well. But I probably watched every single series out there, like Breaking Bad, Prison Break, Dexter, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, you're going to freak out when I tell you this, but I have been emailing. Do you know the lady who played Ross's first wife, Carol, the lesbian? So she started a charity, and I emailed her saying, I run this podcast. I love to promote things. I would love to have you on to come and talk about your charity and whatnot. And she said, yeah, absolutely. So in a month from now, she's coming on. I said, you do realize half the questions I'm going to ask you are going to be friends questions, right? And then she said, oh yeah, I get that all the time. No worry. Ask away all of your friends questions. So I've been like freaking out because I found out this like 2 weeks ago. So I've been freaking out and I've been looking up so many interview questions that people can ask for like friends related. I am going to with friends wise, I'm going to get all of the info out of her, just ask what that experience was like. But yeah, I cannot be more excited to have her on. So I will definitely, when that gets recorded, I will definitely send you a link for that, because everyone I think would love to see what she would say about backstory on Friends, because that's, for me, that is my favorite TV show of all time. I'm just a basic person when it comes to that. And I'll ask you again, like, what is your favorite TV show of all time for our next question? But is your favorite TV show Friends, or do you have another one?
No, 100% Friends.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like everyone's favorite TV show. So absolutely. So what is your guilty pleasure movie?
I do like a Titanic or a Mean Girls, not gonna lie. Chick flicks.
Yep.
It's really good.
Titanic, yeah, I mean that's such a popular movie. That's one of mine, but my all-time one is it's my favorite date night movie, The Princess Bride. That
Never seen it.
you've never seen The Princess Bride?
No.
Okay,
I
so as
think
soon as we're done recording this, it's going to be a little bit later your time or the next day. Whenever you have a free hour and a half, you find The Princess Bride online, you watch it. There's plenty of sites that you can see it on for free. I highly, 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 highly recommend it. It is a great movie, especially watch it with your boyfriend too. It's like one of the ultimate date night movies, and you love those sort of chick flicks. It's kind of a chick flick, except it's super, super funny. Like your boyfriend will appreciate it as well. Like there's plenty of jokes that he would really enjoy in it. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I'll even send you a message after this, like The Princess Bride, just to remind you, because I can guarantee that you will really, really enjoy it. So now for our final 2 questions for the questionnaire part of our podcast. What is one thing that you would change about the fitness industry if you had the all-seeing power to?
Ooh, that is the question. Do you know what? Like, I feel like sometimes, like it's all about how many followers you have before you get sponsored and all this stuff. And like, that's one of the things that really kind of gets to me, because I think there are so many people out there that deserve to be seen, and like they're doing good things, working really well, really good athletes, and then they just might not get the time of day just because of the amount of followers they got, or they don't get a lot of engagement. But if no one's going to give you the chance to do something, like for me, like I've been in industry for about 3 years now. I'm finally starting, like I've been sponsored by BPI Sports. Again, that comes from like winning competitions. I've worked with some like clothing brands before. I've worked with a meal prep company and stuff, but it's like the kind of bigger brands as well. Like as soon as you go on their programs to see how you can be an ambassador or whatever, it's like, you have to have 20,000 followers or this and the other. And like, okay, I get it, it's a business and stuff, but some of these people with 20,000 followers or more, they might not even be real anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it is down to the followers you have. I think it's just down to you as a person and the message you're putting across. So that is one of the kind of things that, gets me a little bit.
To talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice that you would give her?
Put down the red wine. Honestly, like, I don't think I would never change anything. I don't ever have regrets. I think, life is meant to go how it goes. I feel like you are set out on the path, but you can take a different direction. And all the stuff I've been through and experienced, it would have made me the girl I am today. And I don't regret like my party lifestyle, because I actually lived. I think, I listen to a lot of podcasts these days, and there's like 17-year-old entrepreneurs, 21-year-olds. And yeah, it's amazing what they're doing. And, sometimes I think, God, I wish I knew this when I was 18. I could have started really young. But then I think you're missing out on that teenagehood as well, and you're missing
Absolutely.
out on that. So I definitely don't regret my party lifestyle. Definitely don't.
Me neither at all. I wouldn't change one thing about it personally. So now moving on to at what point in your journey did you decide that you wanted to do personal training?
What point on my journey?
Yeah. Was it early on, or was it after a while when you were like, hey, I really think that I could help out others?
So it was quite early on. As I said, as soon as I gave up dance and I started teaching fitness classes, that's when I was like, I want to do one-to-one, because as I said, like I wanted to do it more on a personal level, because sometimes people that come to classes, like they don't normally come because they want to, like they come because they get dragged by their friends and things like that. And just coming to classes on its own is not going to get you the result, because it's all about nutrition. So for me, it was like, I want to be able to help people on a one-to-one basis so I can actually really get them a good result.
What's the one excuse you usually hear that people give you when it comes to not wanting to adapt that more healthy and fit lifestyle?
I have no time.
Yep.
No time is like the biggest excuse you can ever have. But, at the end of the day, like we all have the same 24 hours in a day. It's just how you decide to use it. So, if you've got to like do something, like get up a little bit earlier or stay up a little bit later, like I can't even tell you how many things I get done in one day. Like my to-do list is just like, non-stop. I'm organized and I'll get it in, and it's because I want to do it. So if something's not in your top 3 priorities, you're not going to want to do it. So if you're like, right, family comes first, then my job, then my other job, and then fitness is number 4th, It's like, well, you're not really going to do it. You're like, fitness needs to be in your top 3 priorities, otherwise you'll never do it.
Mhm. I always say, like, I have had nurses on here that do 12-hour shifts and they still find a way to work out. It's all about, your priorities. And people don't realize, they always think that, it's going to take like an hour and a half to get a workout in. There are some workouts that you can do, like especially those high intensity training workouts where you'll only have to be in the gym for like 20 minutes and you'll still get as much of a workout as you would if you were to do like just an hour of free lifting. So it's all about finding out what works best for you. And also, one of the big things that I cannot stress the most is learning, like you said, the proper nutrition, learning how to keep the weight off once you start losing it, because there's been all of these shows like Biggest Loser for me. I hate that show more than anything else because they'll have these people come on, they'll work them out for 12 hours a day, and then obviously they'll start to lose weight, because if you're working out for 12 hours a day, you can eat whatever you want and you'll still lose weight. But once these people will lose like 120 pounds, but then as soon as the show wraps up, these people will gain 180 pounds, so they'll weigh even more than they did before they started the show because they were not taught the proper ways on how to lose the weight. So it's all about also learning the ways to keep the weight off once it starts losing. Otherwise, it's completely not going to be beneficial for you and it's going to be almost a waste of time. But when it comes down to training your clients, is it hard for you sometimes? Because like I said before, people have so many different body types. People have certain diets that'll work best for them. Is it hard for you at first to sort of gauge what a person's best option is going to be for them for weight loss? Or has it kind of gotten easier over time the more people that you've seen?
Well, this is the thing, and I agree with exactly what you're saying, because I don't believe in diets. I just believe in strategies. And when a client comes to me, as you said, because of their body type and their training, their lifestyle, their preferences, not one size fits all. So I will use different strategies on different clients. So I like to work with a client like for a good 6 months, especially if they want to compete. Like, and like to know how their bodies react. For example, I had a girl come to me. She was doing a ketogenic diet for quite a long time. Her carbs were like 5%. Like, she's like, right, I just really want to I've hit a plateau. I want to build some muscle. And, she was looking like quite skinny, not strong, because of she's on keto. You need the carbs for the muscle. So rather than just jumping straight in and going, okay, we're going to take your carbs right up to 30%. I said, okay, well, we're just going to slowly build it up over time. So every 2 weeks, I would increase the carbs 5% and start to lower the fat as well. That in 3 weeks, she saw a massive difference. Her body just kind of tightened up and everything as well. So yeah, that's one of the things I definitely do. I've got girls competing in a bodybuilding show next month, and they're different categories and they're different people. So I put one girl on a carb cycle plan, and the body just didn't react to it. She just kind of, wasn't really losing any weight. It was taking quite a while to get the ball rolling. So in the end, I said, right, we're just going to go back to a simple plan. Just a simple calorie deficit, carbs around, 40%, because we want to keep you on a meso split, want to keep that muscle up. And yeah, she's just dropping the weight now consistently. So as I said, everyone's different, and you can only try these things on people to see how they react to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't recommend it more. And again, you guys, Emily Hackett, we can't appreciate enough having you on the show. I'll leave your Instagram down below, but are there any other ways that people could contact you other than your Instagram? Like if they want personal training advice, if they want a personal trainer, what are other ways that people could get a hold of you?
So we are on Facebook, bta.fitness is my company name. We're also on YouTube as well. And you can find me personally on LinkedIn. If you guys use that out there.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. So again, you guys, I'll leave all that links down below. I highly recommend, especially if you're in the UK. We do have a substantial UK audience based on what I've done with my research. So if you're in the UK, or even if you're in America and you'd like to get a new scenery, a new different taste of what maybe personal training might be like, definitely go and give Emily a message. Definitely go and reach out to her. She obviously seems, just from the 45 minutes that we've been talking with her, she definitely seems like she knows what she's talking about, and she would be really beneficial. So again, you guys, Emily Hackett, can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Shout out to all my fans. No, I'm joking.
We'll give a shout out to her boyfriend then. We'll give a shout out to her boyfriend.
Yeah, there we go. And everyone that supported me as well, because I wouldn't be where I am today without the help of my network around me. So thank you guys for that.
Oh, and lastly, are you currently getting ready for any shows, or what are you at right now in your training cycle?
So for me personally, I just competed back in May. I did Body Power Model Search, which I won overall. and I did WBFF, which is when I won my pro status. So for me now, the goal is to build more muscle because I wanted to hit the world stage either next year or the year after. And the girls I'm up against are just like another level. So,
Yeah.
as I said, for me, I'm one of these people that always need a goal. Like I can't, if I'm bulking, like I need a goal whilst I'm bulking to keep me, keep me focused. So I've decided to do a powerlifting competition early next year. So I've got a powerlifting coach at the minute. I love my strength training. I'm hitting really high numbers. So the next goal for me is a powerlifting show. So I'll let you know how I get on with that.
Absolutely. And again, you guys, Emily Hackett, we highly recommend having her, definitely going and checking her out. She's been a great guest, and we wish you nothing but the best. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.